America is for Americans. No, not some German propaganda. That's out of the words of Stephen Miller at the now infamous Madison Square Garden rally. He's returning to the White House as the Deputy White House Chief of Staff under Susie Wiles, and he'll be responsible for policy, and that means immigration policy. Now, look, you're here. You're already on the Legal AF YouTube channel. You got to come here regularly. You got to help us. I can't tell you how important it is now more than ever to subscribe to Legal AF, because we're going to be covering every hour, every day, everything that the Trump administration is doing, not just as watchers, not just as observers. Like, isn't that interesting, right? We're not anthropologists. We're outlining for you what the next steps are going to be. The lawsuits, hundreds of them, thousands of them, that are going to be filed against policy. We need you here. Hit the free subscribe button. I'm Michael Popok at The Intersection. Let's look at Stephen Miller and these executive orders, what they are and what Donald Trump's going to try to do right here on this hot take. First of all, we know that Donald Trump, and now that we know Stephen Miller's back, he was there in 2016. He was the architect of the inhumane, undignified immigration program that put children in cages and separated families, deported everybody, and put an end to asylums as we know them so that people couldn't come here when they're persecuted or violently attacked in their own countries. It's exactly the kind of United States of America I want to live in. And that is all courtesy of Stephen Miller. Now he's back and turbocharged. And he's bringing the band back. He's getting the band back together again. Tom Homan, who ran the inhumane immigration policy and put people in cages and deported people. He's already been on 60 Minutes. Donald Trump said he's going to be the new border czar. He's going to be given all the powers over immigration, Tom Homan is. Tom Homan looked the reporter in the eye in 60 Minutes a week before the election and said, yeah, we're going to deport everybody. She said, what about when the child was born here, but the parents don't have proper status? She says, I'm going to deport all of them. She said, American citizens? He said, yes. So he's going to deport American citizens, the children who just had the misfortune of being born from parents who are in proper status at that moment. And rather than keep the parents in the country and give them a path to citizenship and green card status, he's going to deport them all. That's his solution. So he doesn't have to put children in cages. So Tom Homan's going to be working for Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is going to be working for President Susie Wiles, who's the co-president along with Donald Trump in the White House. I'm trying to give you the power structure here, the organizational chart. Stephen Miller is a bad person. There's no other way to put it. And he's going to try to use, as is the rest of the White House, executive orders to get all of Donald Trump's MAGA policies through. But that's the way we can oppose him as well. They're going to try to avoid having MAGA Congress where bills have to originate primarily in the House, especially ones that deal with money, have to originate in the House. But the House is going to be a tricky place for MAGA because even though they're going to have probably a 2 or 3 seat lead, it's like the last time. It's not large enough to run roughshod over the Democrats, and they're going to need the Democrats and Hakeem Jeffries, who will be the minority member in the House, the minority leader in the House. They're going to need him to pass big things like debt ceiling and government spending and the budget. So there's that. So the MAGA around Donald Trump, like Stephen Miller, they don't want to rely on having to wait for a bill to be passed into law. That could take months. That could take years. They're going to use executive orders. So they've already drafted all of these executive orders. Now, there's limits. Yes, the president has the power, so the Supreme Court says over and over again, under Article 2, to pass certain policies as executive orders, as long as they're not inconsistent with law already on the books by Congress or not an area where Congress has to legislate. Congress has to go first, in other words, before the president can, with a stroke of a pen, create an executive order that's binding, okay? And you can always challenge an executive order as being inconsistent with the U.S. Constitution, inconsistent with the law. Every executive order has to have some sort of hook. It has to be tied somehow with some sort of connective tissue to the statute that it relates to, the subject area that it relates to. There has to be a power of something, the power of the Attorney General to do something, the power of the Director of Homeland Security to do something, or the head of the FDA, or the Surgeon General. Those are where the powers come from. And the executive orders are the policy setting for these executive level cabinet positions. But there are limits. There are bumpers. They're going to be tested. That's why we created Legal AF a few weeks before the election. Not because we were like, yay, Kamala's going to win. We hope that was true. But we're like, what if she doesn't? What do we do about it? What does our community do about it? Legal AF. And now we're going to help be leaders and guide with your help, guide and map out the future and how this works. Executive orders are challenged regularly in the last administration for Donald Trump. It will be again. Every time something out of the fevered imagination, dystopic imagination of Stephen Miller comes flying out, there'll be a lawsuit filed by the Democrats up to the United States Supreme Court to say that it's outside the purview. It violates the Administrative Procedures Act. It violates the law that Congress has on the books. It's trying to set law and legislate when it's not allowed to as the president. We have a legislature. That's an Article 1 function, not an Article 2 function. So there's going to be hundreds of lawsuits. I mean, Stephen Miller is the person who wrote Donald Trump's infamous 2017 speech about American carnage. Do you think Stephen Miller thinks the world is better than in 2016? Wait till you hear the inaugural address. I'll listen to it for you. It's going to be worse with Stephen Miller basically penning it. Stephen Miller and Tom Homan are going to run amok. They're power drunk already, saying crazy things out loud about how they're going to turn this country into a fascist dictatorship and go after their enemies. And they're going to be supported by other people. Donald Trump at least brought in some adults the last time around. No more adults. All of these people that are being picked for these positions have to go through a strenuous litmus test. They're being beaten to within an inch of their life to pledge fealty and loyalty to Donald Trump. Stephen Miller already did. He went off into the wilderness for 4 years. He created, because Donald Trump wanted him to, America First Legal. That sounds like legal AF, doesn't it? AF Legal, which was filing lawsuits left and right, even though Stephen Miller's not a lawyer. He was running a law firm that was filing lawsuits left and right in court to try to tie up the Biden administration policies and executive orders. We're going to do the same thing. Every time Joe Biden lost on an immigration issue, on a COVID issue, on a rent stabilization or control issue, on a student loan issue, because his executive order exceeded his powers and exceeded the powers of Congress, boom, we're going to do the exact same thing to Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and their crazy cooked up immigration policies. There's already executive orders drafted. Stephen Miller, I'm sure, has had a boner, all since the election night, and he's been staying up all night drafting up crazy executive orders. I have no doubt about that. And they're sitting there for Donald Trump's, like Sharpie marker, and then we got to get our hands on them because they get announced. They're not secret, thank God. And then from there, the Democrats have to roll into action immediately. So Legal AF, again, wasn't created just to usher in a Kamala Harris victory or what we thought was going to be a Joe Biden re-election victory. It was created in case you had to break the glass in case of emergency. Legal AF was the glass, or Legal AF was behind the glass, right? Waiting, and we're here. And now we got a job to do. Roll up your shirt sleeves. We got a lot of work to do. It starts with an examination, deep dive here at the intersection of law and politics, commentary and analysis like no other. And then that gives you, in the public side, the community side, what you need to know in terms of knowledge, and then we move it forward in the cases. So we'll continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF. Take a minute. Now more than ever, we need your help. Hit the subscribe button. Till my next hot take, till my next Legal AF, the podcast, or here on this YouTube channel. I'm Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.